Weather's definitely a little crazy out here. Usually, I think our temperatures are in like the 80s, and yesterday our highs were like 68. Today is supposed to be like 70, some low 70s. So weird weather that we're having here. Hopefully, you guys are having some pretty nice weather. Maybe.
It's been in the 50s and 40s here when I'm getting up, but it's getting to about the 70s during the day.
Oh, okay.
So look, you need to have a campfire.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice camping weather for sure, with a little fire and some s'mores. So, all right. Well, hopefully you guys brought some questions. I pulled some questions from the community like we always do. So we'll jump into that here in a minute. But we'll go over the the standard stuff that we do when we do our Q&As, and that would be first thing is, what's new in the community? Nothing. Community is still the same. It hasn't changed much. New people, but not new content or anything like that. So what's up and coming? Nothing really. I still need to reschedule Soil Wars, so that's going to be up and coming. But trying to balance my time right now to see when I can actually get that rolled out for you guys. I know a lot of you guys were like, "Oh my God, I want to play," and then we didn't have enough people to play, and I apologize because that was my fault for not getting enough engagement. I didn't advertise it enough, man. That's what happens sometimes. So. And then the next thing we will look at is this right here. So we're about halfway through the month. Is it 30 days in September, October? 31 maybe? 31. So we're about halfway through, and everybody wants to see what the leaderboard is. So we'll go ahead and look at the 7-day first. Let's see if we can get that squared away. So the 7-day looks like we got Jim at top. Looks like we got Tony, Tamara, Julie, Ertaza, Thelma, Betsy, Mary Heather Red, and then Casey. Not bad for the 7-day. That's pretty cool. These change. These are on a rotating 7 days. So this is going back to Thursday last week. They don't start fresh, right? So that's how. Go back. Go back. I think I did it right. Did I not? I had somebody else try to come in. I clicked yes. I thought I clicked yes. There we go. All right. Sweet. So it's on a rolling 7-day. It's not. It doesn't start fresh. So this is what everybody wants to look at. What's the 7-day? Who's gonna make it into Soil Games this month? So let's take a look at what Soil Games looks like this month. We've got Jim at the top. Well, not this month. We're halfway through. Still plenty of time to get into it. So we got Jim, we got Julie, Tamara, Betsy, Ertaza, Red, Tony's pulling up, Jennifer's in there still. So 600 points it's a pretty decent gap between 350, but there's still 2 weeks left. So it's anybody's game. You can see here, Jim, in 1 week, he can rack up 300 points. And who is that? Tony racked up 200 points in a week. So add 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 5. Public math is not my strong suit. So it's about 700 points. So that can definitely get you in there. The 700 points that Jim's doing or whatever can definitely get you into here. So still a chance. You can still knock some of these people off. But that's what we're currently looking at. And remember, Soil Wars is where we play for a prize, and then everybody that wins Soil Wars collects those points and then goes, Soil Games, and then goes into the finals. So let's see. So as you can see here, these are our monthly winners for Soil Games. We had all of these people there. These are the points that they collected. And then the overall leaderboard this is what this looks like. So if you end up in the top 3, you're going to play for a bigger prize at the end of the year. So still anybody's game. These games are pretty fun, and you can rack up a lot of points really quickly. So, and that is the leaderboard. So I will get out of that so you can see my pretty face again. And we'll jump right into the Q&As. So what questions, if any, do you all have? Sweet. As you guys are thinking, we'll jump in.
Today.
All right, no worries. As you guys are thinking, we'll talk about the mini topic for today. The mini topic, before we jump into the Q&As that I pulled off of, what is it called? Off our community. Mini topic today is going to be microbes in a compost pile. So let's have a little conversation about what actually breaks down the compost pile, if you guys aren't familiar. And the reason we're talking about compost, because it's turning into fall, and usually you guys are going to have a lot of things that are dying, coming to the end of their life, and then you're going to be like, what do I do with all of this? Do I throw it away? Do I create a compost pile? Do I chop and drop? What do I do with it, right? Well, composting is a good way to get rid of that organic material, and then come spring, guess what? You'll have more compost that you can put onto your garden beds, which is great because home compost is usually better than anything that you can buy off the store shelves. So this compost, how does it actually break down? Well, we got a few players that come in and actually do all of the work. The first guys that come in are going to be your bacteria. Bacteria is usually the most abundant thing. It is the most abundant thing in the world. It's on every surface of everything. It's on your phone. It's on your nose. It's in your hair. It's on your couch. It's in your clothes. It's on your phone, everywhere. So in a compost pile, it is going to be there as well. Bacteria comes in and they like to feed on simple things, right? They don't like to work really hard. Plus, they don't really have teeth, arms, legs, anything like that. So they're coming in and just feeding on the nitrogen in your compost pile. This is actually what heats up the compost pile. So when these microorganisms are coming in, these bacteria are coming in and feeding, they start multiplying. And as they're bumping into each other, right, they run out of space, and all of a sudden it produces heat, right? It's kind of like when we rub our hands together. Same thing happens. They're eating really fast. They're reproducing really quickly. They start pumping into each other. All of a sudden, your compost pile starts heating up. This is the initial breakdown of the compost pile. The second group of people who are coming in are usually the fungi. Fungi come in after the compost pile has kind of broken down a little bit. They don't really, some fungi do good in warmer temperatures, other fungi do not. But fungi come in and break down all of the things that the bacteria didn't. So they're going to come in and break down all the woodier things, the lignin things, and that's what they're going to enjoy. And then we have we have a couple of players that come in and they're really not breaking down anything. These are going to be your protozoas and your nematodes. These guys are actually predators that are going to feed on all those guys that are multiplying in your compost pile. So as these microorganisms are multiplying, they're coming in and feeding on those guys. So it's an entire system, ecosystem, that is working to break down all of this organic material. Pretty cool how this compost actually breaks down on a, what is it called? A microscopic level. You can see all this stuff if you have a microscope and you know what you're looking for underneath in your compost pile or your vermicompost, right? Now, since I brought up vermicompost, that's a different process of breaking down organic material. So vermicomposting is the use of worms to break down organic material, right? The first was regular composting, where we're kind of using heat to break it down. And we also have static compost piles, which are old school piles where you just pile things up and let it break down naturally. And then there's this not new, but there's another type of composting, which is ASP, Alpha Sierra Papa, or aerated static piles. And basically what they're doing is you're pumping air through that compost pile instead of having to turn it. We're using machines and equipment to be able to do that. Same idea, we're heating the compost pile up. It's just a different way of executing it. So all of these compost piles are using microorganisms to break them down. It's just a different process. It takes a different amount of time. Maybe there's a different equipment that's required, or what's it called? Time. Or there's a different time frame that it takes for all these things to break down. So microbes do all of the hard work, so we don't necessarily have to. Although some composts are going to take more work than others, but in general, that is what microbes are doing in a compost pile. At the end of your composting cycle, you should end up with something that's kind of chocolatey brown and can hold its shape, hold moisture, and you shouldn't really see too much of what was in it before. Now, you'll probably still see wood chips because those take quite a bit longer to be able to break down. But the remainder of the material should not be left over. So if you ever seen some people, they create compost and then they're sifting out these chunky pieces, right? Hopefully those chunky pieces are just wood pieces and they're not any of the other organic material that hasn't broken down yet. Lost my train of thought. And that happens. I'm getting older. So the compost is finished when it reaches that nice chocolatey brown color and it doesn't have any smells to it. That is compost that you can use safely in your garden. Now, what's left over? All of those microbes at some point will actually kind of come into, is it homeostasis? They're going to equalize in the compost pile. And what does that mean? That means that there's no longer a ton of bacteria in it, right? Some of those bacteria get eaten up by the predators, and some of that fungi comes in and kind of takes over that pile. But there's still predators feeding on the fungi. And this is extremely important because when everything comes down into balance, that is what we want for our plants. Let me tell you why. It's kind of like going to a buffet. If you've ever been to a buffet, you like having a bunch of different things out there, which is great, right? Because you have a bunch of different things to choose from. Nobody wants to go to a buffet where the salad bar is massive, but then your meat selection is not so good. Or if you're like me and you like breads, pastries, and desserts, you're not so happy when the dessert bar is lacking or the ice cream machine is broken. I'm not going to point your fingers at McDonald's, but I'm just saying, why is the ice cream machine always broken? So we always want to make sure that we have a massive buffet available for our microorganisms. And this is why making sure that when the compost comes down, settles at a nice temperature, that we have all the microorganisms there so our plants can go to a massive buffet. We don't want them to just go to a kind of okay buffet, right? We want them to go to a massive buffet. And in order to do that, we have to keep that compost alive until we're ready to use it. And this means that we have to keep it moist. We have to keep air flowing through it, right? And all of that keeps the life in the compost pile living. And this is why I always say, if you're going to get compost, buy it locally, something that's locally produced, because it's probably still alive. Those guys are keeping that compost pile turned, they're keeping it aerated, they're keeping it moist, and therefore that compost is going to be alive. Bigger buffet for your plants. If you go to the store and that's the only option you have, right, it's better than nothing, but understand that you're getting a bagged product that's probably dry because it's too heavy to ship when it's wet, and it's in a sealed container. So what that just basically means is, like, put a bag over your head, don't drink any water, and let's see how long you survive. You're probably not going to make it very long, right? Well, the same thing happens for those microorganisms when you bag them up and you put them in a store shelf, right? They have to transit, they have to do all of that. So a lot of those microorganisms actually die. Local compost is the way to go. Homemade compost is the best way to go. But it's whatever you have access to, right? Not everybody has access to a compost facility near them. Not everybody wants to create a compost. And in that case, maybe in-ground worm bins are the way to go. But at scale, that's probably not feasible. So there's different strokes for different folks, right? You just got to find out what works best for you in your area and what you're willing to work with and how much work you want to do. And these are the questions that we talk about in the Legends group to kind of figure out what you struggle with and kind of pinpoint that and give you all the answers for it. We don't have enough time in these calls to be able to do that, but we do that in our Legends calls. So let's jump into Q&As. Not one last round. If you guys have questions, chime in. I can see you unmute, but I will jump into questions that I found online in the community. All right. Boy, I wish I knew how to say these names, but Ruan, R-U-A-N. Sorry, I butcher people's names. I do. I grew up in Texas. Our school system wasn't the greatest, but all right. He posted something and he talked about weeds, right? So we all have weeds, and he was talking about pulling the weeds out and making sure that his whole soil was healthy. So there's a different, when we're looking at a living soil, at it differently. We're in Texas Central, about 40 minutes north of Texas, Austin. So when we have plants that we don't want in our gardens, right? Because literally that's, oh, Arlington, nice. I like Arlington. It's right between Dallas and Fort Worth, plus the Ranger Stadium's there, Dallas Stadium. It's like not big city, but you have everything there. So sorry, guys. Yeah, Texas folks, you know. When we're looking at a living soil, the way we look at plants is a little bit different, right? While a weed is technically a plant that grows out of place or that we just don't want there, they're actually performing a service to our soil, believe it or not. So when we have a weed, let's call it a dandelion that's growing in your garden, there's a reason he's growing there. And it's probably because the conditions are right for him to be able to grow there. And Mother Nature was like, it's your time to shine, baby. Grow, right? And so therefore that dandelion is like, I'm going to grow, and it uses a taproot to go break through the soil and grab all the nutrients that it needs, right? And that taproot, because these dandelions grow in random places, right? That taproot is really important because it does a lot of the hard work cultivating the soil. What I mean by that is breaking it up, right? Because these dandelions will grow in the cracks of sidewalks, on the side of the street, right? They grow anywhere and everywhere. So that dandelion is serving a purpose. The first purpose is breaking up the soil. The second thing is that it's actually feeding the living soil, believe it or not. So when you have all these plants and all these roots in the soil, right? We talked about, or in the classroom, if you've made it through the modules, we talked about exudates that the plant releases, right? These exudates are feeding the soil biology. If you rip out that plant, whether it's a weed or not, you are no longer feeding the biology that's in the soil. So again, a living soil is different, right? We're looking at feeding the soil. We're not looking at feeding the plant. So the cool thing about having all these weeds or different plants is that they're going to continue to feed the soil, which will continue cycling nutrients for weeds or maybe the plants that you are trying to grow. So pulling them out is sometimes a good idea, and sometimes it's not. It really depends on what you want to do and what you're trying to accomplish. Most of the time, I will let the weeds grow. If I just don't like the way they look or they're just taking up some place, I will chop and drop them. I will leave the roots in the ground, right, to be able to maybe still push out some exudates, depending if, I mean, dandelions are going to grow back. If I don't yank it out, it's going to come back. So it's going to continue to push exudates into the soil, right? But if I had a plant maybe that didn't grow back that well, then those roots are going to be food for those microorganisms in the soil. So I'm still feeding the soil, but usually if I chop them, then I'm planting something else close by in the same vicinity or something like that. And which usually goes into the next question where people are like, aren't they going to steal nutrients from my plants that I want to grow? And the answer is no. Hey, Betsy, what'd you have for breakfast?
I had my usual egg white scramble with turkey breakfast sausage and peppers and onions and cheese.
Oh, Sounds like.
I don't like egg yolks. That's why it's the whites.
Oh, okay, nice.
I'm weird.
Hey, hey, Jennifer, do you have the same breakfast she did?
No,
No, you did.
no.
Hey, Jim, do you have that breakfast that Betsy had?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I had
So,
oats.
oh, okay. So what I'm trying to get at here, guys, is that plants are just like us as humans. Betsy had an egg white breakfast with a bunch of accoutrements to go with it. And nobody else had the same breakfast. Plants are the same way. Some plants, they need nitrogen or potassium or phosphorus or manganese or boron or, zinc or iron. The other plant next to it is going to need something different. They're not pulling all the same nutrients from the soil at the exact same time. So they're not stealing nutrients from each other, right? Now, they might be stealing nutrients if your soil doesn't have anything in it, right? But the majority of our soil has plenty of enough organic and inorganic foods for our plant to be able to survive. So the thought that, maybe our plants are going to be stealing nutrients, it's not. Look at the jungle, right? Look at the jungle and how close plants are planted next to each other. If that was a true statement, then the understory of a jungle would be barren because all of the big trees and the big vines that are grown would steal all the nutrients from all the other plants, right? It's just not true. So plants can grow next to each other. The issue usually comes when we don't take care of the soil, and then the plants don't have access to all of those nutrients. And then that gets us worried. So take care of the soil and it'll take care of our plants. So keeping the plants in the soil, whether it's a weed or not, is usually the best thing to do. All righty. Next question we'll jump into. Hopefully that answers a little bit of the why or what behind pulling weeds and why I like to keep them in the ground as long as possible. Irtaza posted something about pots and growing in pots. Growing in pots and growing in the soil are completely, not completely, they are different. Okay. So the first thing that is limiting is the fact that the pot size is the pot size, right? The plant can only get so big because the pot's only so big. What that really means is that Irtaza was saying that he runs out of nutrients. If you have a vigorous grower, right? Like if you're trying to grow a tomato plant in a 2-pint or a 1-quart pot, you're going to run into problems. Those roots are going to start spinning and filling up that entire pot, right? And it's going to be sucking up a lot of nutrients. At that point, you will probably run out of something because the plant is using up everything that it can so quickly, right? And this is why he was saying that he up pots, right? Or he gets bigger pots and he puts plants in new pots. And that's probably a good idea if you have a vigorous grower. Now, if you've got indoor plants, these plants that take forever to grow or put on a leaf, they're not using a lot of energy. And the root systems usually don't get massive. And therefore, those plants aren't using up a lot of nutrients. They're just not. So that means that you can keep them in the same pot for a longer period of time. It just happens to be that sometimes when we have indoor plants, there's an indoor plant group on school, by the way. So if that's your thing, I would go check them out and they could probably help you out. But I think a lot of us, if we have indoor plants, maybe I'll speak for myself. We forget to water them. And then they go dry out and then the microbes go dying and then your plant's lacking because it's like, I don't have access to anything. So when we're talking about growing them in the ground versus in a pot, can you run out of nutrients? It's possible if you have a vigorous grower in a small pot, but the majority of the time, if you did an actual test to see what the total nutrients are in your entire soil, there's probably plenty that your plant has access to. If it's not doing well, it's because it doesn't have access to it, right? It's locked out. You can call it whatever you want. What you're doing, what you have is a lack of microorganisms to break those materials down to feed your plant. So that's really what's going on. So great question from him. Then we had another question from Ruan about grass propagation. I'm sorry, guys. I have no idea about propagating plants really. I mean, I tinker with it here and there. I think there's a guide probably in the classroom as well. But when it comes to grass propagation, I don't think that's a thing. I don't think you can cut a grass leaf and then plant it and it'll grow for you again. That's more of a succulent thing, right? Plugs, yes. Betsy's right. It is. It's a plug thing, right? So, and what is a plug? All right, it's where you. It's the best way. I could probably pull up a picture, but while I'm looking that up, I'll pull up a picture. A grass plug is basically where you cut down into a soil or a grass in a square or a round circle, and then you pull that entire thing out. Then you take that, which has soil, roots, and grass in it, and you can transplant that somewhere else. So let's see. This ain't really what I'm looking for. Let's see if we can
I
share.
found a short video that showed a guy doing plugs.
Oh,
on
nice.
YouTube. Posted it on her post in the community.
Oh, okay.
Granted, he was using a kitchen knife to do the plug, which I don't recommend,
I mean,
but it showed the technique fairly well.
yeah. So let's see. So you can see this this picture right here where it looks like he went down and cut a rectangle out of the soil, and this is the plug that you would have. In this case, if we look at this Pro Plugger right here, right, you would take this apparatus, which is just a pipe, you would take it over to where you have grass, and you would stick it down in there, jump on it, twist it, you would pull it out, and you would be left with these little round plugs. Actually, this is a good picture. And then you would transplant these into it, and that would be a way to propagate grass, right? I'm not sure if you can. I don't think that you can grow grass from the leaves, unfortunately. So that's what that would look like. And then if you guys want to go watch a video, go watch a video from that Betsy posted on that post. I just lost my spot. All right, and then the last question was, which we kind of already covered, so I'm not going to touch on this too much because we just did talk about it. It's compost. And Jim had posted about buying compost. Where do you buy compost? What is the good compost? We already kind of talked about that. Compost needs air, water, right? Food in order to be alive and stay alive. So if you're buying compost, I would always look for something that's local first. Local compost is good compost. Majority of the time, it's better than what you can buy in a bag thing on the store shelf. Now, some people don't have access to a compost facility near them. Then I would look at your local nursery and see if they're carrying any local compost. That's probably going to be your next best bet, right? So go to the nursery, see if you can find, a bag that was produced in West Virginia, right? Or what's next to West Virginia? Kentucky, Tennessee, something like that. I'm not well with my eastern states. Sorry,
Yeah,
never
you're
lived
close.
there. All right.
It's Kentucky.
Is it Kentucky? All right, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Kentucky, Ohio, Virginia. Yeah.
All right. So I would look for something that's closer to that area, Again, Texas school system, right? But look for a compost facility or a producer that is closer to your area. That means it's probably been created not so long ago. If you're buying something that's on the shelf and it came from California, I could tell you that stuff was probably in a warehouse on a truck for months, sat on the shelf before it made it to the shelf, and then you bought it, and then who knows how long, right? And that's usually why those bags are dry. So compost quality does matter. It absolutely does. How it was created, where it was created, and then the consistency of it, right? So try to find something that's local, close by. It's going to give you way better results than anything from the store. I can promise you that. So hopefully that helps you guys out a little bit and tells you guys a little bit about compost and what I do and some of my recommendations for compost. All right, one last go around. Do you guys have any further questions before we wrap this one up? See, everybody's still muted. No.
Yeah, not me. I'm
All
good.
righty.
I'm good right now.
All righty. Sweet.
I'm good too.
All right. Well, this was a quick session, quick Q&As. We got a couple of questions answered out there. We'll drop this video down into the community so that some of you guys can watch it later. Again, the recordings are only available for the legends. So if you want to make these if you want to have your questions answered, or you want to hear all of that stuff and get the recordings, then you want to make sure that you sign up for that. Additionally, the legends calls are going to be on Tuesdays, and that's where we deep dive into these specific topics for your problems. So you bring up a problem, we talk about that, and we deep dive in, and we figure out exactly how to fix that issue. So I think this week we talked about Jim's compost a little bit, and a couple of, I think we talked about Julie's stuff too. So if you guys want to deep dive and you really have some burning questions, you just help me, just tell me what I need to do, Dennis. Those are the calls that we get into it, and that's what we do on those. So appreciate you guys being on this call. If it's morning, good morning to you. Hope you have a good rest of your day. If it's afternoon for you, well, hope you have a good afternoon. Get some good lunch. Maybe not egg white omelet or maybe have an egg white omelet with all the bell peppers, onions, tomatoes.
Why not? It's still
jalapenos.
good.
I'm not a big breakfast person, I'm not gonna lie. So I usually won't go for an omelet. I'll probably have a waffle. I like pastries, so, or a piece of coffee cake or something like that. But wherever you're at, if you're having an afternoon, have a good afternoon. Have a good rest of your day. Get some good lunch in there, and then we will see you guys in the community. Like always, ask me questions, drop a DM, post them in the community. Everybody's pretty friendly. There's a few of us that bite. Just kidding, nobody bites. But happy to answer your questions and happy that you guys are part of this community. So thank you guys. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah.